start class with questions from the previous day's assignment. But did I give you a homework assignment on Friday? No. So far, the only homework assignment I've given you is that algebra review sheet. Now, another thing that you're going to see me generally do is I have this front of this set up specifically so that you can keep track of your homework assignments. We didn't have this prior to today, so we couldn't really do that much with it. Now, I am not grading you in any way, shape, or form on your notes. If you choose to write stuff down on this front page to help you keep track of things, that's not a bad thing. If you choose not to because you have a different way of keeping track of your assignments, I'm perfectly okay with that. If you are a person who you do better off just kind of listening to notes and you don't write a whole lot down, I am okay with that, but keep in mind, you get to use your notes on tests and quizzes. Probably be a good idea to have some notes. So I do recommend you follow along with notes. There are times where I will say, okay, you try this problem. If I ever do that, I do expect you try those problems. So you are writing at that time. Now, our review assignment that we did in our notebook is technically due today. If you have it turned in, go ahead and check it off so you don't have to worry about it. If you don't have it turned in yet, remember, while today is the due date, I will take it up until the day of the test without loss of points. But do you really want to have like 10 homework assignments to do the day before a test because you procrastinated? No, I advise against that. So I would recommend getting it done sooner rather than later. If you don't know already, turn-in bin is over here, very top shelf, says period 1 on the side of it. That's you guys. One other thing that I want to point out today as we're getting used to things, there's this bin over here. There's 3 of them technically. The one on the far left says geometry standards. Were you absent? Anytime you have missed a day, if it's a worksheet or something, it's in here. So, if you're ever gone, that is a good place to find it. Anyway, let's get to some geometry. Our first page of notes, you'll notice on the bottom, is actually numbered page 3 because the cover is pages 1 and 2. Today's goal is to get some of the key parts of naming things in geometry and recognizing things in geometry, and that's what we're focused in on today. Hence the reason you don't need a calculator. It's all about letters today. Now, before we dive into actual terms and that, one of the things that I want you to know about geometry is picky about capital letters versus lowercase letters. It is very picky on notation because they mean different things. So, if you see me write a capital letter, I'm doing that for a reason. If you see me write a lowercase letter, I'm doing that for a reason. And I will point out some of those specific things. Now, in geometry, we deal a lot with terms that technically don't have a formal definition. They have kind of a description, they're explained with examples, but they've not really been defined. They're called undefined terms. Now, while these terms are called undefined terms, I try my best to give a definition so that you can make sense of what the heck I'm talking about. Because if I just start talking about things and not tell you what they are, it makes math really confusing. Now, the key undefined terms that we start with that build everything are points, lines, and planes. So those are our undefined terms along the side: a point, a line, and a plane. Now, points. Probably not a shock. You'll see a point, you'll see a dot, oftentimes with a point. You will also see points when two lines intersect one another, but they might not draw the dot. So if I draw two lines here, and technically, hanging out right here where those two lines intersect is a point. So, one of the key things we have to be able to do is we have to be able to name things with proper notation. Points are really easy to name. If I want to name this point, I write the word point, and then I write the capital letter that is hanging out right next to it. Or sometimes they'll just use the capital letter, and that's okay too. Points are the easiest thing to name, but it has to be a capital letter. If it is lowercase letter, it is something else. That's why geometry is picky about capital and lowercase letters, because certain things get named by capital, other things by lowercase, and they do that so that you don't have as many things to write, but it ends up making some things more confusing. And I'm sorry about that. I didn't create geometry. Okay, now lines. One of the things about geometry is, I know you guys have seen lines before, but in geometry, lines start getting a little bit pickier. You talk about an art class, you talk about in the real world, if someone draws this, they drew a line. In geometry, that is not a line. That is not a line for multiple reasons. First off, lines must be straight. If it is not straight, it is a curve. Secondly, they must go on forever. Notice this line has arrows on both ends. It needs that to be a line. If it doesn't have arrows on both ends, it's something else. Now, there's a few different ways to name lines. By the way, I tend to write the fancy L a lot of the times. It's just so it doesn't look like a 1. You don't need to use the fancy L. To name a line, one way you can do it is if there is a lowercase letter right next to one of its arrows. Do you see a lowercase letter hanging next to the arrows? What letter is that? It's the fancy L. They tend to do it as a fancier letter when they do it. And I can call the line, I use the word line, and then I use that letter. That's one way to name a line. Or, the way that you're going to see more commonly done is there are going to be 2 points on the line. If you can find 2 points sitting on top of a line, that's actually one of the things that they talk about, is if there are 2 points, there is exactly 1 line that will go through those 2 points. It's impossible to have an additional line to go through them. Because if I have 2 points and a line must be straight, there's only one way to draw a straight line through them, assuming you can draw better than I can. And since 2 points is enough to create a line, essentially, you can use the 2 points on it. Now, since these are points, they are capital letters, and they will do this. They will choose the 2 capital letters, and then they'll put a line symbol above it. Now, since it is a line symbol, it must have arrows at both ends of it. It must have that symbol above it. The order of those 2 letters does not make a difference. Line AB and line BA are the exact same line. Heck, if I were to go in and put an additional point on this line, let's say I go in and I put a C on there. If I reference the line AC, it is also the same line. Because it still goes through the same points. Keep in mind, just because I put a 3rd letter on it, did I put a 3rd letter in its name? No, lines are named by 2 letters. Are there more possible names for this line now that I have the C on there? Yeah. Line L, line AB, line BA, line AC, those are all options. What are some other options?
BC.
Yeah, line BC. There's 2 more options.
CA.
Line CA and line CB. Because the order does not matter. Now I'm not going to write out every single one of those in this box. I could if I really wanted to. Okay. Last thing we got is a plane. To name a plane, there is not a symbol for it, kind of like a line. You have to use the word plane. Now when it comes to planes, if there are 3 points that are not all on the same line, it's getting warm in here, so I'm opening this up to this one to cool off a little bit. If there are any 3 points, only 1 plane can go through them. And a plane is a flat surface. Think like a piece of paper. A piece of paper can represent a plane. No, I said it can represent a plane. Because planes, much like lines, extend in all directions forever. There's just no possible way to put a bunch of arrows along these sides and make it not just look obnoxious. But planes do go on forever. So, without end, they go forever, in other words. They go forever in all of their flat directions. This would be like a piece of paper that is infinite in size. That would be a plane, that flat surface. Now, to name a plane, there's 2 ways to name a plane. Option 1, if there is a capital letter hanging out in the corner of the plane that is not connected to a point, you can name it by 1 letter, that letter. Is there a capital letter in the corner of this plane? Shaking heads. What letter is it? M. Now double check. Is M connected to a point? Nope. So we can call this plane M. Again, capital. Specifically, the capital letter in the corner that is not a point. Or, another way I can name a plane is by, similar to a line where you can name it by the points, planes can be named by points too. But for planes, you need 3 points. Are there 3 points drawn in on that plane? What 3 letters are they? B, A, and C. In any order, you can put those 3 points. Again, 3 points. Does not matter if there are 4 points on the plane, if there are 5 points on the plane, if there are 50,000 points on the plane. You name it by 3. Any 3, any order. So if I want to go BAC, that's perfectly fine too. It's still the same plane. There's a lot more options on what I can name it. And that's what we're focusing in on today. That's what we're getting picky about, is we're getting picky about that notation. We're also going to learn a couple of terms that go with our points, lines, and planes. These are important terms that are going to pop up a lot throughout geometry. If you have a bunch of points that are on the same line, kind of like these ones, they are said to be collinear. Co means shared, linear means line. So if I got a line with a bunch of dots on it, that's an example of collinear. While if one of them is off the line, that specific one is not collinear with the other two. We could talk about the same thing with planes. Things all being on the same plane. Now, planes can have not only points, they can have lines on them. But if they're on the same plane, we call them coplanar. Planes are always drawn as these parallelogram-like shapes. So, if they're all on that plane, they're coplanar. If they're drawn like this, and I'm going to zoom in on that drawing quite a bit. If they're drawn like this, specifically that line is not coplanar. Do you see how part of this line is dotted? I did that on purpose. Now, I know that you've seen dotted lines like that before. You might not remember them perfectly, but I know that they do come up enough in middle school math or in just three-dimensional drawing to where you've seen them before. The most common place that you've seen them is if you've ever seen someone draw a cube. And they often have something like this going on with dotted lines in the back of it. Do you remember what those dotted lines mean when it's a picture like this? Go for it, Tristan. It's the back of the cube that you can't see. It's behind things that are visible. If you ever see a dotted part of a line, that means it's hiding behind something. It means if I have a flat plane, I've got a line stabbing through. If I think of my hand as a plane and the pen as a line, if I hold it like this, can you see the entire pen? No. The part that you can't see would be the dotted part. In order for a line to be on a plane, it has to be flat on the plane. You have to be able to draw the entire thing on the plane that would be like a piece of paper. If you can't draw it on that piece of paper because it's stabbing through the paper, it's not considered on. We got one more page of notes that we're going through today that's got some examples on it, as well as a couple more undefined terms. So a lot of what you're going to see is you're going to see these pictures, these diagrams, and they're going to ask you things about the diagrams. The first one says, give two other names for, what's that symbol maybe again? Yeah, it's CD, but what CD? Line CD. And you're going to hear me emphasizing that a lot because there's going to be another symbol that's very, very similar to this, but is different. I see two arrows at the end, that makes it a line. If there's not two arrows, it's something else that we're talking about in a bit. Okay, so I want two other names for the line CD. Step 1, read the question. Step 2, find the picture. Mason, do you think you can give me one? Did I hear beauty? Yes. Since this line is right here, and it goes through the points C, B, and D, we could have called it the line BD. Just make sure that you put the line symbol above it. That bar with both arrows. Does it matter if I make them capital or lowercase letters? Yes, lowercase letters doesn't make sense for a line. It has to be capital. At least lowercase letters in this notation. Raise a hand who thinks they could give me another name, because it wants two other names. Jackson, what are you thinking? Yeah, we could have just flipped the letters around. Now, I could stop right there if I wanted, because it only asked for two others. But are there other names? Yeah. Raise a hand who thinks they could give me another one. Gabe. BC. Raise of hands who thinks they could give me another one. Cash. CB. Raise of hands who thinks they could give me another one. Dalton. Ooh, H isn't on this line though. There is a line HD, but not that one. Jackson, you think you can give me another one? Okay. We could have done DB. We could have done, we already have CD. There's one other name. Again, you only needed two of them, but I really wanted to emphasize this other name, which is why I keep going. QB. Can't call it QB because QB is a different line.
CB.
We already have CB.
Cat.
What do you think?
CB.
Nope, can only use two letters. Was this symbology the only way we could name a line? No, we got this option too. Is there a lowercase letter by one of the arrows?
Yeah.
What letter is it?
K.
So we could have used the word line followed by K. Now, on a problem like this where it asks for two names, I don't care if you give me specifically that one and one of these, or if you just give me two of these. That's perfectly fine. But we tend to forget this, and sometimes we have no choice but to use this name. Because if there's not 2 points on the line, you have to look for the lowercase letter. Okay. Give two other names for plane H. Do you see plane H in the picture? Yeah, it's this thing. How many letters do I need to name a plane? 3. Those 3 letters better be points on the plane. So make sure you don't use anything that's not a point, and make sure that those points are on the plane. Plane. What are 3 points on the plane? Now be careful with this. There's one other thing that I gotta emphasize that I didn't emphasize about naming planes already. So it's okay if you give me something that I gotta emphasize different. What are 3 points that are on the plane? Points on the plane have dots on the plane. F is 1. C is 1. B. FCB. The word plane followed by FCB works just fine. Another option, plane. Don't forget the word plane. A different mix of 3 letters, or 3 letters in a different order. So if I wanted, I could just be as simple as that. I switched around the B and the C. Now, one thing I did not emphasize here, but it is an important thing to know about planes, is the last thing that's in this box. One of the things that it emphasizes is that when you name a plane, it should be 3 points that are not all on the same line together. There is no line connecting 3 points in this plane, so we didn't have to worry about that. But when it comes to this plane does have a line on it that has 3 points. These 3 points. So you should not be naming it plane CBD, for example, or any mixture of those 3 letters, because they are all on the same line. Okay, 2 more questions and then 2 more undefined terms. Name 3 points that are collinear. Do you remember what I said collinear meant? Go for it. Points that are on the same line, such as C, B, and D. The next question is similar, but it asks for points that are coplanar. Collinear means on the same line, coplanar means on the same plane. We already named what points were on this plane, didn't we? What were they? Point F, point B, point C, and the 4th one is point D. Now our last 2 undefined terms look similar to lines because they're actually parts of lines. They are line segments, which you see me put line in parentheses because oftentimes that's just shortened down to segment. And then they are rays. How do these 2 pictures look different than the line? One arrow, no arrows. A line segment is part of a line, but it doesn't go forever in either direction. It has endpoints, it has stopping points. Now, naming a segment is a little bit more picky than naming a line, but also very similar. Naming a segment, we use the two endpoints. Oops. And then we draw a segment symbol above it. Now, a segment symbol is a bar with no arrows. Some people like to put the dots at the end to kind of emphasize that fact. You can do that, but you don't need to. It's just the bar. Much like a line, it does not matter what order they go in. But the key thing is that they must be endpoints. If I put a third point on this segment, I cannot use that letter to name the entire segment. If I used C in the name, for example, if I had said the segment AC, the segment AC is just part of this segment. It's the part that goes from here and stops here. It's not the full thing. To name a segment, you must go from one end all the way to the other end. Doesn't matter which order you go in, but you have to go all the way from start to end to call that segment. If you use a point in the middle, you're talking about a smaller part of it. Rays, similar, but slightly pickier still. This is the ray AB. To name a ray, the first letter is the end point. In other words, it's the point without the arrow. And the second letter is any other point on the ray. Which means, as drawn, there is only one name for this ray. That being said, if I put another letter on the line, since there's only one endpoint, that would give me another name for it. But the first letter still has to be the part without the arrow. It still would have to start with A, and the second letter is any point on the ray. It essentially tells you direction. A ray symbol always has an arrow going to the right. So, our last couple questions. Can XW also be called VW? To answer this question, you must ask yourself, is it talking about a line? Is it talking about a ray? Is it talking about a segment? XW, is that a line, a ray, or a segment? There's no arrows above it, which makes it a segment. How about this VW? Is it a line, a ray, or a segment? It's a segment. Segments must be named by their endpoints. That's what we set up here. Does XW start and end at the same place as VW? X to W, V to W. One goes here, the other one goes here. Are those the exact same thing? If they're stopping? Is that the same as this? No. The yellow part is a smaller portion of it. Segments come to an end. If I was talking about the lines, then they'd be the same because they both go on forever in the exact same point. but these ones do not. They have different endpoints. The only ways you can name a segment is by using the same two letters in either order. Which brings us to our second question. Give another name for YZ. Again, this is a segment. Doesn't have any arrows. The only other way to name a segment is to flip them. ZY. R, VW, and WV, the same geometric figure. Is that a line, a segment, or array? That's array. This one also has one arrow. It's array. To name array, it goes endpoint onwards. In other words, this one's asking, start here, go that way. If that is the same thing as start here, go that way. They the same? To be the same, they have to start in the same place. Did they start in the same place? No, one starts with W, the other one starts with V. They have different endpoints. Last one also works with rays. YV and YZ. Start at Y, go towards V. Start at Y, go towards Z. Are those the same?
Yeah.
Yes, they have the same endpoint and go the same direction. Okay, y'all did awesome today. That is the end of our notes. First day always tends to be a little bit longer. Tomorrow will be shorter. Okay. Your practice problems. These ones are from the book. It is on page 8. Make sure when you write on the top, you write the assignment name, page 8, day 1. And it is questions, numbers 1 through 14.